folks. I am beyond excited and elated to introduce our guest today. Her name is Marie Poteriaieva. She is the co-founder of D.Center. So this is a dynamic, highly user-friendly blockchain and cryptocurrency education platform. And by the way, I'd like to make the distinction. This is an education platform. So this is essentially to synthesize, distill, and simplify these more dense and complicated blockchain subjects and make them very digestible for the user to understand it. So this platform filters, it distills, it highlights the most relevant content in, let's say, whichever part of blockchain you are researching and exploring. Now, I've had the opportunity to also play around and use this platform. And what's great about this is that this does look like a blockchain node system. So it's very intuitive and it's very organic. So you're not looking through a laundry list of links when you're on this website. In fact, you're almost interacting with something as close to, I would even say, a video game. And I mean this in the most positive way. It is so interactive. It is very easy to dive into it, and I would say it is almost fun, and it is simple. And I'd also like to welcome our CEO, Chris Abadi. He's just hopped on. Chris, I just introduced Marie and her company and her crypto and blockchain education platform.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. And Adam, thank you for a very concise, precise description of D.Center. And I'm so glad that what we wanted to do, you actually perceive the product as we intended it to be. So I'm really happy.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear. And, I wanted to ask you, how did this idea come to you? So, you have this website, your platform built out like a series of nodes. You click on these nodes, and it leads you deeper into certain topics. So it almost looks like a very intuitive blueprint, so to say. So, like I said, the great thing about your website, you're not going through like a list of links. You're going through almost a very organic process, almost in the sense of a video game, this interactive process where you're clicking on these so-called nodes, and they're bringing you to an additional set of nodes with other additional topics that most likely are going to give you the answer that you're looking for. So how did you come up with this? Because this is a very creative way of presenting information. And I think for blockchain to succeed, people have to make this as easy and as accessible and intuitive for the average person on the street. So coming up with this, what was your process? How did this idea come to you?
Well, isn't it like this, that you arrange information in your head?
That's actually what I thought too, yeah.
Because, hello.
Welcome, Randy. Marie, this is our CIO, Randy Middleton. He was particularly excited about coming on today. So he'll have his own select few questions later. So
Great.
Randy, just to fill you in, Marie is discussing with us how she came up with the idea of D.Center, which she has all of these blockchain topics and sets of information presented essentially as a node or a series of nodes, almost as if something that you would almost see in like a cyberpunk or a science fiction movie. So if you're like imagining some sort of like some sort of digital brain and you're accessing parts of that brain, this is almost like, I mean, that's how it came off to me anyway. So I really want to know how you came up with this.
Well, we started, let's say like this. We started getting interested in blockchain like 5 years ago.
Yes.
And then 3 years ago, me and the D.Center co-founder, we quit our previous jobs. So I used to work in fashion, he used to work in finance. And then we quit everything and just started learning. And as we were learning, we were putting notes. And then these notes, they became more and more significant. And then we ourselves arranged these notes in this kind of order, because you have like general why the blockchain is needed type of information, and then you have like very specific how does a Bitcoin wallet works type of information. Yes. And between these two, there are lots of different intermediary stops. And as you can trace your way from the very specific to the very general and vice versa. So basically it's how the information was in our heads. And then we used to, we find a developer to make it true
wow.
in code.
Wow, that's that's awesome. And would you say your background in fashion, did that help as far as presenting the information? Because I would imagine, at least in fashion, whether maybe it's depending on the seasons or depending on the designer, you're really presenting an idea, I think. I mean, that's how it comes off to me anyway. So I think presenting an idea that makes sense to people too off the bat, at least when I use the website, that was my experience. I'm like, okay, I am literally clicking on nodes. It's bringing me deeper. It's giving me other subsets of nodes. And it was a very, I would say, a stylish way of accessing information too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Aesthetics is a big part of fashion, obviously, but I think it was mostly video games.
Oh, all right.
Than fashion that led us to create the layout.
Yeah.
Because I like games, and I think your comparison with video games is a very good one, and they are becoming the more and more important. And okay, I just before speaking to you, I was playing the Splinterlands.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, I was just learning, but still, it's well, I like crypto games, and I like games in general. So, and I think the big future waits for them, and the metaverse in general. So the aesthetics of the website comes also from video games and all this kind of almost space theme.
Right. And as far as cryptocurrency, NFTs, and gaming, which is really going to be the next frontier, if not with the current frontier as far as NFTs and gaming right now, in NFTs in general, are there any particular titles or platforms that you particularly like? And in fact, maybe growing up, were you also into video games as well? And if so, any specific titles or any specific games themselves?
Well, now I'm investigating Splinterlands, and I'm waiting for the Aurora release because I think it is very beautiful. I don't know if you have seen the teasers.
I've seen the teasers.
They're really beautiful. Yeah. It's a Solana it will be a Solana-based game. It's not on, but I'm really looking forward to it. And as you could have seen on the website, the crypto gaming part is not yet on. It's still in progress, and the website, it's not yet finished. It's really, 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 really far from being finished, because in our heads, there are so many things that we want to implement in there. We want to create, let's say, a getaway for people to not just go and learn, okay, you have this kind of game and this kind of game, but like something much more specific and that makes people at ease and to go in there. The same with the DeFi. For the moment, we have like, okay, this is the dashboard, so the main DeFi protocols and what does decentralized finance do, and some news about DeFi. But where we want to go, the direction we want to go, is to create this easy getaway for people. It's like, okay, let's start. Let's go to a DEX and to see how you swap your coins. Then let's stake them. Then let's, do all this, all this stuff. So for the moment, it's like it's a concept, basically.
Yes.
The website, and that's why, by the way, we are also actually searching for investors now, because all these ideas they need financing to implement.
Right.
For the moment, it's just a big idea of blockchain is huge. It will be even more huge in the future, and it will touch so many aspects of our lives.
Yeah. Do you think NFT gaming, do you think this will compete, or do you think it will somehow maybe improve, I guess you could say, traditional video gaming? So I guess if you're thinking of your PlayStation 4s and 5s, Xbox, and related type of platforms, do you see NFT gaming in the metaverse? Do you think it's eventually going to, let's say, get rid of traditional video gaming, or do you think maybe there's going to be some sort of like interplay with these two over the next few years?
Well, I would definitely like to see an interplay. It would be huge. Imagine the games that you like suddenly allowing you to, for example, to allowing the community to create
Yes.
another hero or another, I don't know, type of weapon. Or
Right.
If you are playing strategy games to like, I don't know, civilization or stuff like this.
Or like Age of Empires or something like that.
Civilization. Because there was a game, actually, I don't remember its name now, but the community of this, it's a crypto game. The community, they decided and they voted on implementing a new type of planet in this game. And the devs, they wrote the code. And actually, this game will now add this planet to its world. So basically, it's like the community wanted to change the game, and they did.
Yeah.
And they could. It's impossible with the traditional games right now. So
that's great. And I think what's really good with NFTs, gaming, and the metaverse, you're kind of almost creating these new economies in gaming. I think one of the great parts of gaming is that, depending on which title you're playing, you can really customize your character. You can customize your gear and equipment in a way, I guess you could say, that really reflects what what you like. So, for instance, one of the last titles I played was actually Metal Gear Solid 5. So they have a multiplayer section where you can actually create your own, essentially, individual type of soldier. So say male or female. You can, hair color, clothing, gear, the insignia that they'll wear when they let's say go into the actual, I guess you could say, into the actual battlefield, so to say. I think a lot of these things are very, very attractive, and I think what's also good is the open world aspect of gaming too. I don't think people like the ability to explore and not always have to, let's say, follow the storyline, at least for me anyway. So I always liked a lot of those open world games, whether it was, let's say, Metal Gear Solid 5, which I just mentioned, or another good one that I liked was actually Arkham Asylum, the Batman PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 series. That was actually like an open world stealth game, actually. So it was, it was very, very, it was very cool to say the very least. So as far as, NFTs and the metaverse, what comes to mind to me is The Matrix. So, the original movie with Keanu Reeves in 1999, and I guess you could say it's sequels, and now there's another one that's going to be coming out too.
Okay.
You see kind of this blurred line between humans and technology. In fact, many humans, let's say, not even being aware, let's say they're in, let's say, some sort of digital world, for a lack of a better word. Do you think gaming, NFT gaming in the metaverse, do you think that's most likely going to be the thing that causes that? Because it's fun. Video games are fun, especially you throw the NFT aspect in there. The possibilities are almost infinite.
Matrix is kind of scary metaverse future. I like the Ready Player One type of future.
Oh, Ready Player One, yeah.
You watched the movie, yeah.
I've seen it, yeah.
And I think we're definitely going to go there. Well, I hope we will live in better houses and stuff.
Right.
And the people will not be as poor. But that's definitely going to happen. Right now, you have the centralized, the traditional style of virtual reality. It's already pretty great. If you combine this with all this metaverse world, which is for the moment, well, it's not that beautiful. Huh? let's accept it. But if you combine the two, we could really go to the Ready Player One game. World really, I don't know, in 10 years, something like this.
I mean, listen, that sounds extremely exciting and promising, to say the very least. It's something like out of a science fiction movie. So like Fifth Element or Blade Runner, like some of those classics. Watching those as a kid, that's how I kind of envisioned the future. And then you have a movie like Ready Player One. I think the possibility of that type of future happening, it may end up being closer, than we think. When it comes to D.Center and your project and your platform, what topics or what events right now are you very, very concerned or interested in right now? 2021 has been a roller coaster, in many ways. A lot of things going on.
I think it is. Huh? If you look at the Bitcoin price right now, I think as we speak, it's like
seems to be it seems to be very bullish. It seems to keep going up. I know for a long time people were hoping that it breaks 100,000. We may be closer to that possibility than we think. And some say that the fact that the Chinese government prohibited all cryptocurrency transactions, that might have had a hand in actually making the price go higher. So that is one of the, I guess you could say, opinions being floated around. What do you think about that? Because I would imagine all the miners now, they're probably going to Singapore, they're going to Dubai, they're probably maybe even going to like New Zealand and Europe. What do you think?
Well, as my favorite part of, not my favorite part, let's say like this, as I do a lot of education,
yes.
Also education of my friends, of my relatives, and like people around me. As I speak a lot about blockchain, the subject that comes really, really often is the adoption, and I find it really, really fascinating. I think right now the tracking crypto adoption is my hobby, and that includes the grassroots adoption, people who really use it, and the adoption on the financial level, on the institutional level.
Yes.
The regulators, of course. I find it fascinating. I'm really passionate about it. And China, with their, huge coup, they really did Bitcoin a huge favor.
Yeah.
If you remember, even like 1 year ago, one of the directions for Bitcoin critics was like, oh, the mining is too centralized. Look, they're like 70% of miners, they are all in China. They are pools, they can do whatever with the price. Well, not. Look, they have been chased out of China.
Right.
They went to Canada, to America, to Russia and Kazakhstan, and to other places too. So now it is more centralized. The hash rate is basically at the summer levels. So, I read the very interesting report by a mining pool called Luxor, which estimates that this year we'll see the all-time high for the hash rate.
Wow.
As people and as the Chinese miners who didn't get time to properly relocate, so they are now like arranging their warehouses, infrastructure, things like this. So they are part of miners who are not yet on, so they will come back. And all these people who are now so into mining and Bitcoin is hot, they will mine harder. So we will see the hash rate going up. And it is such a great thing to show to China. It's like, you didn't ban Bitcoin, Bitcoin banned you in the end.
Yeah, that's actually a very good way of putting it. Sure.
Yeah, and as the regulation goes, like otherwise than mining, I really I'm really convinced that in several years we'll see clear losers and clear winners in this crypto game, and there are and there are countries that that are still hesitating. Like the US right now, I feel like you are hesitating.
Yes,
You
yes.
don't know which way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Randy, our CIO here, he just messaged me. You don't ban Bitcoin. Bitcoin bans you. Randy, do you want to expand on that?
Oh,
I think his sound might not be working. But
There we
I
go.
think,
There we go.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
And we're back.
And we're back. Many countries have tried to ban Bitcoin and stated that they're going to ban Bitcoin. Personally, I laugh about it. Bitcoin is a worldwide, as we are talking worldwide, and the central authorities, the big banks, they're beginning to come to that idea that they're losing control. And I'll stop.
No, I mean, listen, it sounds like you were getting onto something. I mean, Randy, if you want to continue, by all means.
Well, it's like I've been following central bank digital currencies,
right,
and their attempted adoption from a number of different countries around the world. Central America is way ahead of the United States, and United States is lagging behind. China is trying. They have the digital yuan is already out there. What most people don't know or won't say is it's a big failure.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it has a very, very low adoption rate, less than 10% of the population. More like 5% of the population is willing to try it or even just try it. And El Salvador is one country that's adopted Bitcoin, and they have published a lot of problems with it. Mostly people don't understand how to implement it. And your website, to me, I was saying it looks like an ecosystem. It looks like a place to start for a newbie. And I've had the same problems that you've had, getting people the idea of blockchain, Bitcoin, buying some, trying it out all year. And what I've noticed, a personal anecdote, is at my local bank, where I bank in every day or 3 times a week, January this year, the 6 tellers, they had heard of it but not used it. As of August this year, 5 of the 6 tellers actually had Bitcoin, blockchain, different things. One guy had bought Ethereum, Cardano, and Litecoin. And I was very surprised. It went from 0 to 5 out of 6 at my local bank.
Interesting.
Oh, this is actually great because I think when it comes to crypto adoption, there are 2 really, really different parts of the world. There is 13% of the population who live in rich countries, which is Europe, the US, Canada, Japan, and like Australia. Basically, that's it. And there's 87% of people who are living in poorer countries. And these 2 parts of the world, they have very different reasons to go into crypto. Very different reasons. And that is why maybe it still is hard for me to persuade some French people about the utility of Bitcoin. They live in a rich country, they have a stable currency. It seems all right. Like there is some inflation fears, so it's all right. But at the same time, I speak to my Ukrainian and Russian friends, oh, they get it just straight away because they know, because it was not really long ago when they had like no money
Right.
when everything crashed, and then it crashed again. And people in this 87% of the world who are not in the rich countries, they have a very, very clear understanding why it is needed. And that's why when you're speaking about your bankers who adopt Bitcoin, I'm really, or the crypto, I'm really happy because, well, America is a rich country. So even if Americans start to really adopt it massively, that's already a really great sign.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, maybe you could say maybe second and third world countries, they may actually be in a better position to adopt it. It seems like at least in the United States or Europe, the traditional global financial, the traditional global banking system, it's a giant legacy system. It's a big, bulky, inflexible machine. So it doesn't seem to allow for a lot of change. So, if looking at the US dollar failing or looking at the British pound failing, for instance, it doesn't seem like either, let's say, the US or the UK can really quickly pivot or, maybe dodge some of the traditional issues from, like, let's say fiat currency. And maybe that just might be a product of history. Maybe you could say the history of the US and the UK has been more stable from a banking point of view. I don't think that's really the case anymore. Kind of seeing kind of the wide suffering.
Comparing to other countries, it is the case. You always have to compare to others.
Right.
So it's the US, European, the UK banking systems are the most stable in the world. That's what it is. If you compare the Russian banking system and the UK one, yes, you have more trust in the UK one, even if the issues right now are kind of global and all these printing machines going nonstop are gonna, well, I believe, are gonna crush everyone. But it's more stable than elsewhere.
Right. But, it seems to me, trying to look at this as half glass full, I think maybe, and I guess as we've already seen in El Salvador, the greatest, I think, potential for change is going to be in maybe the second or third world. The battleground may be a bit fresher. You can build some new castles, you can build some ramparts, you can move some cannons onto the field. If, let's say, you're the US or the UK, maybe you got all your gear on the field already, but maybe it's like 10 plus years old, so to say. So, these are some of the, I'm trying to maybe think of this in like video game kind of concepts right now as we've been talking about this, but it kind of makes you wonder. So let's say if you look at, even if we take Russia or Ukraine, the ability to probably adopt it on a wide society level, it might be easier because it seems like even the way people are oriented, we don't trust banks. And let's say Bitcoin has more or less proven itself. So I think if you were to try to implement, some real changes, it may have a greater likelihood of success than, let's say, maybe in the US or even France. I think, Chris can probably attest to this. I think if Chris and I walked around New York City right now, I don't think most people would buy Bitcoin. And I think it might be a similar situation to, let's say, if you were walking around in France right now and maybe you tried to convince somebody, Bitcoin seems too mysterious. It's not understandable. And, it's like, oh, well, we have the euro. And by the way, the euro seems to have the same problems as the, US dollar and British pound, hyperinflation and just, seemingly infinite printing of currencies and stuff. Chris, did you want to?
I think, I think here in America, it's like and everywhere else too, but especially here in America, it's very generational. So the older you get, the more people aren't really accepting of it or want to use it, or, no offense to Randy over here, but Randy's a genius when it comes to it. But it's usually when you get to millennials and youngers where you start to see more adoption. You look at Generation Z, I think more than 50% of Generation Z has or owns Bitcoin. And you look at a lot of the baby boomers and it's much less. So it's definitely very generational. And, as Randy was saying, 5 out of 6 now from January to August, the bank tellers have switched over. And I'm seeing the same thing with some of my friends that weren't really into it that are now into it or didn't understand it. And now they're starting to get into it or have gotten into it recently. And it's definitely generational. And I think as more and more millennials get older and more of the, I hate to say this, the baby boomers and older generations start to pass away and leave their inheritances to the younger generation, that's when you're going to see a lot more adoption, because some of the older generation is just very stuck in their ways. Like I just look at my dad, like he's not going to use Bitcoin in any way, like whatsoever, no matter how many times I tell him. He's just going to use his dollar bills and look at his bank account, and that's all he's going to understand until you make an app easy as Facebook to use crypto. Because right now it would just be too confusing for him when he could just use a credit card or cash. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing here in America and New York is, it over this last year, I've seen more people. So a lot of people still don't know what it is or don't want to own it, but it's really seeing that as just the older generations, not really so much the younger generations. This past year, I feel people, just a random number, 40 to 45 and younger, most of them have heard of it or own some now at this point, because with inflation going so rampant and people seeing the valuation of their money just going down. I went to the fair yesterday. I bought a hot dog and I bought a sausage and peppers. It was $25. $25. I was like, what? What? He's like, yeah, no drinks, no nothing else. Just a sausage and pepper hero and a foot-long hot dog was $25.
It sounds like the San Gennaro Festival.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I would actually get there. Yeah,
it's absolutely out of control what prices are. And my wife was behind an elderly woman at the grocery store, and she got told the price, and she was like, "Oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford this." And it's just starting to get really bad because the older generations have been taught to save and save and save and save, but with the government printing money and making it, devaluing it at such a rapid rate, that all of these older generations that are so accustomed to saving are seeing their purchasing power of their savings just go to shit, really, because what they thought may have been a good amount and a nice nest egg 10 years ago is now, oh, am I going to have enough to get through these next 10, 20 years? Because they're devaluing the money so fast now that people are scared. They don't know what to do. Compound that with the COVID effect, compound that with the supply chain issue now that you have going on, and everything that we've had these last almost 2 years, it's starting to come to a head. And I think El Salvador, like Randy was saying, is on the right track in terms of, just trying something new. They're not forcing people to use it. They're just saying, hey, here's another option that may be better than the dollar, because El Salvador doesn't have their own currency. They use the dollar. So it's a perfect testing ground to see what people would prefer more when it comes to a store of value. So yeah, that's my little rant, but I completely agree so far with this conversation. And I do want to wrap around back to the metaverse once we go through a few more questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Marie, you mentioned winners and losers before.
Yes.
Could you speculate, who do you think the winners and losers may end up being in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, loser. I won't speak about America because I don't know if the infrastructure bill passes with all these crypto provisions that are really, really bad.
Right.
But on one hand, you have a strong lobby, strong crypto lobby that is trying to do things right. So I don't know. It depends on this bill. I really see France as a loser, frankly. And basically, anyone who about China, anyone who is really anti-crypto for me is a loser. But the winners, they can be really surprising. They're like obvious winners, like I don't know, Switzerland, which is been pro crypto for so many years, and it is that they're very cool. They are outside of European Union.
They're very independent. They're very flexible and innovative, and they have a very good tech and startup, I guess you could say, sector, like Zug Valley, for instance. That's what comes to mind. Like Switzerland, they're in a great position. I don't think they're going to be burdened by, I think, the decisions of the rest of Europe.
No, because they are independent, and just there was the Crypto Valley Association. They made a report. They calculated top 50 companies, Swiss and from Switzerland and from Liechtenstein. And they basically, these top 50 companies, they multiplied by 10 the valuation in 1 year.
Wow.
Multiplied by 10. They're like 250 billions right now, the top 50. Only top 50, because there are others.
Right.
And for such a small country, it's a great opportunity. And maybe El Salvador will go there. Maybe other small countries, they can do this. Singapore is also trying to attract crypto companies, although they are much more restrictive. They're really, really strict, actually.
Yes.
But they may be winners. And the unlikely winners can be really poor countries that can leapfrog. Leapfrogging is basically what you were saying before. When a small country, when a poor country doesn't have to go by all technological steps required to achieve the technology in a developed country. So it's like, I don't know, a telephone in Pakistan. They really have very few landlines, but when the mobile came, they didn't have to build them. They just switched to mobiles. They leapfrogged. So this leapfrogging can also be applied to finance, to money. And if you take, I don't know, if you take Zimbabwe, if you take Nigeria, Venezuela, I don't know, like really, really unlikely countries.
Yes.
If their rulers, if the legislators, they do the right thing, they abandon this myth of this hope of creating a strong sovereign fiat currency, they cannot. Okay, they have some other problems. History shown they cannot. They have huge inflation, corruption, all these problems. But what they can do is authorize and stimulate crypto development so they can leapfrog and actually find themselves in a more advanced position than the big Europe with its euro and all this super system.
Right.
This could be really, really fun. I'm just hoping I can see it.
I mean that's, I agree with that. And in fact, I think by pure volume, I think Nigeria is either number 2 or number 3 for the most cryptocurrency transactions per day. So people in Nigeria, they are very attuned. Kind of like much like you said, some of the other developing areas of the world, people who maybe not necessarily have the history of, let's say, a strong central bank, they're very flexible and very adaptable to learn and use this as fast as possible. So with, let's say, Nigeria, with let's say with an incredible amount of cryptocurrency transaction volume going through there, it's it's very, very telling. And I think that adds even more substance to what you're saying. We could be seeing the winners of this in 5 to 10 years. It could be the Nigerias of the world. It could be the Venezuelas, and probably for Venezuela, it'd be one hell of a comeback story too. In other countries like that, because I think given those conditions, I think people are very resilient. But also the willingness to learn and the willingness to try something new, which I think unfortunately we may not have that here in the U.S. just yet, and it seems like that's also the problem in Europe as well. I don't know if it's
too rich in Europe and too relaxed, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm European only for half of my life, so I also really have this second world country point of view. And unless you're in dire need, most people won't bother to go there.
Right. So you're originally from Ukraine, correct?
Yes.
And you've also spent a good chunk of your life in France. And I hear about Ukraine and Russia all the time, as far as cryptocurrency and blockchain and projects and people using it with regularity. Is there something, let's say, culturally, that maybe Ukraine or Russia may have an advantage? Because people seem to be flexible and willing to dive into that. Is that more of a product of history or something else?
I can give you one example. When the COVID hit and like all the markets slumped and like there was like worldwide panic, what did the Russians do? The first thing, they started to withdraw their money from the banks. Because, when you survived, or your parents survived the crash of the Soviet Union,
right?
And you know that this system, it's not forever. It can crash.
Right.
The banks can crash, and they have this really useful understanding that when you put your money in the bank, it is not your money anymore. It is the money of the bank. So the understanding that like people in France don't have, because everything was kind of good, kind of nice so far.
Yeah.
In 2 generations, basically. So so people in Russia, it was a pretty big phenomenon. They started to withdraw money from bank accounts, and now that the economy is starting to like going better and the world is feeling more confident and vaccines and all this stuff, well, they didn't put it back.
Very nice.
And many people speculate and saying and trying to guess, and the biggest guess is that this money is in crypto, because when you look at local bitcoins or other P2P exchanges, Russia is a very strong country. I think it's one of the biggest P2P exchanges is in Russia. So, draw your conclusions.
Yeah, actually, and Russia, Nigeria, and a few other countries, and by the way, not the UK and not the US, they're the ones who are behind the traffic, and I guess you could say the volume of cryptocurrency transactions per day. And I have to say, from that story you told me, I guess you could say, of the collapse of the Soviet Union and people just taking all their money out of the bank. Now, that is a very, very healthy thinking. And I think it's also very good to think none of this stuff is going to last forever. And this might be a problem that we have here in the US and Europe. It's that maybe with the long period of stability, I guess you could say after World War II, a lot of these things are taken for granted. And I don't think people maybe necessarily appreciate how flawed or maybe even how vulnerable these things can be, like a central bank, for instance, and that is something that I don't think people here conceptualize this enough. You do put it in a bank and it is no longer your money. Friends of mine who are accountants, and they'll say stuff like that, or people who I know in finance, they'll say stuff like that, and it's usually kind of like a joke or a quip, but it's actually quite true.
Oh, it's not. For many countries in the world, it is really, really true.
Yeah.
And that's why always when I'm speaking to my French friends who are like, why do you need this Bitcoin? Oh, invest in real estate. Those who also feel that inflation is going to come, invest in something like that. No, you really, you can invest in real estate, of course, but you like keeping your money in euros is really not good long-term thinking.
Right. And, on a side note, I never understood. I do to an extent. I understand the history of why the euro was created, but you're also looking at, let's say, a continent of 2,000 plus years of history of different people constantly at war until the end of World War II, and even afterwards. And I used
We're
to always,
friends now.
yeah, we're friends now. But if you look at the entire history of Europe, like the end of World War II, the Cold War, this was kind of just like yesterday in the scope of things, and it always, I never entirely understood it. Like Spain, Germany, Portugal, France, you guys are all sharing the same currency, different histories, different economies. Many of these countries also have long histories of being at war with each other. So I'm thinking to myself, like, I never personally was either comfortable or entirely even understood the concept. I kind of wonder what the average European feels about that.
Well, as fiat currencies go,
yeah,
I like euro. Well,
yeah.
Okay, it is a fiat currency, so if I have to choose between other fiat currencies, I don't know, I like this country, and I think when you have a long history just of living in one place, and you have neighbors around you, you will be at war with them. That's normal. That's what humans do.
Yeah.
Just because Europe is very old.
Yes.
That it had lots of wars, but I don't have any problem with the European part of thing. I love it. Actually, like living in Europe is a bliss. It's one of, like, for me, it's one of the best places to live because you can pass, like, I live in the mountains, and like I can take my car and I can be in 2 hours I can be in Italy, and in 1 hour I can be in Switzerland, and those will be two different mentalities, two different people. They will speak different languages, and although we're so really close, the mentalities are different, but still there's something European about it. There's a flair.
Right.
No,
right.
I like this part. I like it very much, actually.
I will say though that is a very great aspect. You can be in Italy in 2 hours from where you are in France, or you can be in Germany maybe in a similar amount of time, or Portugal or Spain. That part always seems very attractive to me. Like, you can literally take an awesome vacation in really a short amount of time and with a lot of convenience in many ways. Yeah. So that's incredible. Oh, Randy was asking, how many languages do you speak, actually?
I showed.
Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, you saw it. Okay. 6. So
6. Yes.
Okay. So can you tell us which languages then?
Russian, which is my mother tongue, Ukrainian, English, French, Italian, and Japanese.
Wow.
Just because I like it.
Yeah. And Japanese is not an easy language to learn. I took Chinese in school, and obviously Japanese is a completely separate language. But from what I took it, like, a lot of I think the principle comes from your chest when you pronunciate a lot of words. That's when I took a handful of lessons. That's what it seemed like to me, anyway.
Okay.
So that's just anecdotal. But anyway, I know Chris wanted to go back to the Metaverse.
Yes, let's go to the Metaverse.
Yeah, I just find it so interesting, and I'm trying to wrap my head around how these worlds are going to interact with one another in terms of virtual reality worlds, augmented reality worlds, and real worlds, and how they blend into one another and things like that. And I think it's great. I'm not a huge gamer. When I was younger, I used to play video games, but for the most part, like, my brother's a huge gamer, and I can see how people can get immersed in these worlds, and it becomes its own economy and everything. I'm fascinated in how it's going to start bleeding into the real world in terms of augmented reality and ownership of, putting on some glasses. Like, Randy is familiar with Google Glass. He was one of the first people to use it. And, because it wasn't so accepted when it first came out, people didn't like it. But I feel like now, with things going much more virtual, with COVID and everybody going, kind of remote, and Facebook announcing with Oakley that they're going to do these, Metaverse type augmented reality things. I'm just interested to see how that starts blending into one another, because it's augmented and it's virtual reality and it's reality. So it's just so interesting to me. And I think NFTs are going to play a big part in that, in terms of digital ownership and real ownership and the trust level there. So maybe you could speak a little bit on that, what maybe you envision Metaverse as being 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25 years from now. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Facebook, and yes, they started investigating the Metaverse, and it's kind of scary. I really would not like a centralized entity, especially with a track record as the Facebook's one, to launch a Metaverse. Because if we're going to be living in this world, if we're going to be owning digital fashion, if we're gonna be owning digital real estate, and we're gonna make parties and work in there, you really want to make this place decentralized. That's why it's really important. I'm really like the guys who are working on, I don't know, Sandbox, Decentraland. Please work harder. I really don't want a Facebook to dominate the future Metaverse.
Yeah, they do have a shit track record, to say the very least, and I definitely share the same concerns, to say the very least. But there's a lot of promising things, and I think some of the things that we've maybe experienced, whether it's from gaming or cyberpunk and science fiction movies, some of these things may may be coming to life sooner than we think. And I think the Metaverse, it may be the portal to a lot of that, and hopefully Facebook stays out of that as long as possible. I think Facebook, as great of an idea as it started, I remember when I first used it in college, it has mutated into maybe a hydra of sorts, of a lot of kind of bad things. I think a lot of bad things people, it represents a lot of things people do not trust about society, about tech, about the government.
They're right.
Yeah, right. Like a Big Brother surveillance state. I mean, I think it's been like that here for a while anyway, but Facebook is very in your face. There are almost countless examples of data breaches and malfeasance with people's personal information, and in all kinds of stuff. I mean, that could probably be an hour-plus conversation alone. Getting into the weeds about where Facebook has dropped the ball. I am very excited for the Metaverse, and as far as your company, what do you have planned next, project-wise?
Well, first, we want to raise funds.
Yes.
And then we want to go and live our dream. Basically, what we want to do middle term is to make of D.Center this hub where people can go to and learn and be guided and be motivated to use. So we have the projects of a motivation system of sharing our revenues with our visitors, those visitors who participate in the website, share it with their friends, and so on.
Yes.
So imagine if you're a newbie, okay? For example, the crypto game. You heard about a crypto game. You heard about play to earn concept.
Yes, yeah.
You don't know how to start, so you would go to D.Center, just read basically what it is, and then you'd have community support, which is motivated by the share of our revenues. of decent revenues to help you. So they will help you. And while helping you, they will earn a part of our revenues. And then you, while starting to play this game, you will also earn some revenue because you started it. So basically, we have this economic system that we want to implement, and which, when implemented, it will be like the how do you say, the virtuous circle. Because people will be motivated. So because right now the problem is that many people are not motivated enough. They go and they can read about it, but you really have to be really curious to go and to start doing DeFi or games, or I don't know, just buy crypto simply. But if we motivate people to do this, and we have an idea how to, they will go and they will do it. And so basically, we plan to finance ourselves with the advertising and partnerships and things like this.
Yes.
And of course, give a part to people who try crypto. So that's the system that we want to implement.
It's all about incentives. I mean, incentives is all it's. I mean, look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin exists. The currency Bitcoin exists to incentivize miners to run the network. So everything's about financial incentives at the end of the day. So if you can motivate or incentivize somebody in that way, you know, and create a positive feedback loop in doing so, where it aligns the interests of everybody involved, that's exactly what blockchain and Bitcoin is all about.
And it's also about openness. And we are ready to like completely open our revenues. We don't want to hide anything. And just to, when you put the revenue sharing in a smart contract, like, you cannot mess with it. So we want to be open and honest, and we want to show people that we're honest, because we do not really believe in this all kind of I'm hiding everything kind of mentality.
And I will say this, the ultimate success of blockchain is going to be on how accessible and convenient it is to learn this subject. And I have to say, from playing from using your website, and like I said, I really enjoy the layouts. It's very organic, it's very intuitive, and I have to say it is fun. And like I said before, I do compare it to a video game. It is very great. It's very alive. It's not like I said, it's not looking through a list of articles. You're literally exploring separate nodes. I think actually it's separating the wheat from the chaff. And I think some of the problems with blockchain, there is too much information out there at times. It can be a little overwhelming. And, you know, some of that information is quite questionable. So this is a nice siphon to really give you the most relevant, maybe the important points of what you're looking for. So I am very excited to see what you have in store over the next few months. Fingers crossed. I hope you meet all of your expectations as far as funding and, you know, getting this to the next level. And I want to say, Marie, thank you so much for coming on to our show today. I think your platform is very, very unique. And I think the way that it actually approaches learning, this may be applicable even outside of blockchain. So you may be onto something, you know, to say the least. But you know, listen, I learned a lot today. You know, I had a wonderful time speaking with you. I'm looking forward to hearing more about what you're working on and having you come back on as a guest in a few months. And you know, we can revisit and talk about what's new and where you're at as far as your projects and everything else. And you know, I'm very much looking forward to see what you have in store, especially this very cool website. And, you know, as a guy who grew up, and I did play a decent amount of computer games and video games, this automatically made sense. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I enjoyed speaking to all of you too. You're really great chatting companions. So I would really come back with pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Marie, have a wonderful day. Have an awesome week. I'll definitely be talking soon.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.